All right. Well, welcome to the last session of the day. Welcome to the first day of the 2024 American Gem Trade Association Tucson Elevated Seminar Series, sponsored by the American Gem Society. We have had a terrific day, and I'm really looking forward to this presentation. The title of the presentation is The Innovation of CAD in the Jewelry Industry, and it's brought to you by Christopher Mendola. Excuse me, Chris. Interesting fellow, a lot of information for you. I'm really looking forward to it because, as I told Chris earlier, I started out on a bench in 1972 with sterling silver and natural gas, and then go back to my dad's jewelry store where we're working on 18 karat, 14 karat, and platinum with acetylene, and I was melting everything. Quite a difference from then to now. So please welcome Christopher Mendola.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you all the crew today. I've been fortunate to watch all the seminars today, and kind of changed my beginning a little bit because I was kind of interested to see who would come to hear about CAD at a gem show. And I'm going to segue off of some of the previous presenters. But I'm going to start with the very first person I ran into today was one asked me what I was doing here, and I told him. And first, he said he was Blaine's student from '95, which is actually older than my relationship with Blaine. And that was in the days when Blaine, who is the director of New Approach School for Jewelers, if you don't know, was traveling around the country. Next, he then gave, I don't want to say a typical answer, but a common answer, and with a face of slight disgust about CAD. So a lot of people that I've run into in this industry, there is a negative connotation to CAD, and that's kind of why Blaine brought me on board to rewrite what it is. To be what he coins a CAD smith, really tie into the jewelry world, communicate better with jewelers. That is something that's been lacking, and again, I'm coming from outside the industry. I have been around it. My name's Chris Mendola. I have been around it for since I met Blaine about 25 years ago. But a lot of what I'm bringing into the industry is a new approach. Just like when I met Blaine, when we were writing his curriculum, he was doing a lot of things new for stone setting and things like that. So same philosophy. We're here to change and make waves, and kind of break down that negative connotation. And that's a little bit of what this what I made with this speech today, is to talk a little bit about just a different type of approach. All right, so I'm going to start with a hybrid approach that, again, coming from outside the industry, I've used so many different programs to achieve the results I want. There's not, there's, when you're working like in 3D illustration, 3D animation, things like that, you usually will piece together anything that can make, your desired result work. And that's something I didn't find in this industry. It was, everybody was kind of working in like one program. Usually it was Matrix or something like that. And they rarely incorporate this hybrid approach that I'm going to talk about. Besides that, with software, I'm going to begin this presentation with a hybrid, same philosophy, dealing with the technique they use and also a hybrid approach to material as well. All right, so what do I mean by that? Well, industry, a good example of this is my friend Zoltan David, who I'm going to show one of his pieces, but he kind of incorporates, and it's a good example of all of these three things together. But by using a hybrid approach, he uses the amalgamation of materials, so hybrid materials, techniques, and software as well. All right. So this will mostly be on the software because that's my expertise. But first I'm going to talk about what I mean by the hybrid approach with materials and with techniques. So this is, and I'll talk about this piece in a little bit, but this is Zoltan's. So what do we mean by hybrid materials? Well, for one, it can be just anything really, but they could include uncommon metals, enamels, resins, woods, bones. And why do we use them? We use them to create a distinctive custom design. And I'm going to kind of tie in a little bit of why I feel like I'm up here talking about CAD at a gem show. And that another major reason you would use hybrid materials and then create CAD in general is to showcase the rare gem. And then you can enhance form with bold contrast like you see in this example, with juxtaposed materials. You can add functionality, and like Haley was talking about, if any of you were here at her presentation, you could tell a story. All right, so the gem has a story, it has a history. Zoltan often has, he's worked with some rare gems, in fact, probably one of, a few from Shelley's collection, and that have had a rare history, to say the least. And he can incorporate that with some unique materials to enhance the gem itself to tell the story. All right, so a little bit about this. This is called Starflower. It's Zoltan's piece. It's created in iridescent colored steels, 18 karat gold, 24 karat gold inlay, gray sapphires, and magenta tourmaline. All right, so you can already see the bold contrast and a showcasing of the gem. It's an AGTA award winner. And most importantly, what I wanted to convey with this is, knowing how it was created, it's a perfect example of him using the CAD to solve assembly challenges. Now, this is where I'm going to start to break down some preconceived notions, and this will segue into my next slide, which is hybrid techniques. So with hybrid techniques, I'd like to first talk about the gentleman I ran into earlier today, and often a lot of students that come in to learn fabricated techniques at our school. And that is that, contrary to a lot of people's thought process, CAD does not have to be all or nothing approach. All right, so you can use it in combination with fabricated elements. All right, the obvious might be, for instance, you can maybe draw out wire for better stone security, but you can also use CAD for your design as well. Just for the design purposes, and especially what we're going to get into is with Matrix Gold and the parametric designing it really aids in your design process. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it can be a huge time saver just on your pave layouts. I mean, like hours upon hours of time can be saved. And then you could create the impossible, and you just can reach a higher level than, unless you are Jason Chiafava, most of us just can't achieve, right? So we can use CAD for that purpose, and again, you do not have to cast your piece. You can cast as much or as little as possible, like Zoltan does. So Zoltan he pretty much always uses CAD, and in the very least, he's using it for like a job bag organization. So he's using it to figure out his fabrication process, which is a big time saver. And it also, so I'm really high on organization, and I will talk. I'm actually going to talk about organization in the software process, but organizing before you start experimenting with your metals and gems is probably a really good idea. All right, so let's go on to the software part of it. So, in this industry, and again, this doesn't actually include my favorite software, which is Blender, but in this industry, I like to combine Matrix Gold and ZBrush, Rhino 3D, which Matrix Gold is on top of, but it's not taught well enough with Matrix Gold. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about the advantages of running them both side by side. And then I also include Grasshopper, although I do not, with Matrix Gold, Grasshopper is, when I taught it, it's a big ask to learn. It's more purely mathematical. There are some students that I think it's really good for, but I think a lot of them just have too many hats to wear to begin with, and it's a little bit of a learning curve. But it's still amazing what you can do with Grasshopper, so I included that. So with this, by using all these programs together, you of course can expand your tool set, and you're using a combined strength. You're making like a super program, if you will, which leads to more precision, greater efficiency, faster workflows, better designs, and it reduces limitations and frustrations. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these along the way. So where to begin? So when it comes to jewelry CAD software, there's only a handful to choose from. However, it can still be very confusing, both in starting out and for those seasoned that have to adapt to new technology. And that I'm going to include Zoltan as one of my students. What I really appreciate about him is his willingness to always try new things and learn. And he's been doing CAD for 20 plus years, yet he wanted to learn different approaches. And that's, I think why he's so successful. I think we should always, including myself, we should always have an open mind. I learn a lot from my students, and I adapt. Sometimes I'll adapt. In fact, Meredith is sitting here. She's one of my students that I adapted one of my lesson plans from. So always have that open mind. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the software, and these are like the big approaches and like buzzwords that you hear today. So surface versus mesh modeling, parametric versus linear, and then I just included new versus old technology. So let's start with these two right here, surface versus mesh modeling. Now there is a few more ways to model 3D, but in this, definitely in the jewelry industry, it's only down to these two. All right, surface versus mesh modeling. And to be honest, they're really are can be summed down to these two. So surface modeling is the NURB-based modeling that we learn and we would use in Matrix Gold and most of Rhino. Rhino 3 can do more than, but it really is not. Has some mesh modeling aspects to it, but it is mostly a NURB-based modeler, a surface modeler. They are mathematical expressions, and they tend, why they're really good for this industry is that they create an overall smoother form for the jeweler. And that's why we don't like use Blender, even though Blender's a vaster program that is a mesh modeler. I would have loved when I first got into to use Blender and adapt it, but it's really not. It can be used for jewelry. We do have some that use it, and kudos to them. But overall, it's it's a slower approach, at least to start with. So we really want to use this NURB base. We want to incorporate that as part of our main tool set. So the downside is harder to sculpt the fine details, which is why we add programs like ZBrush, or you can add Blender to that. And then for those of you that really don't know where we're coming from, it's similar to what a vector image is. So it's Adobe Illustrator. It's vector-based. Adobe Illustrator is vector-based. Think of that as NURBs. All right, NURBs are 3D. The vectors, basically. So I always, hour one, I always tell the students, mesh modeling is like your Photoshop, which we're going to get to. Surface modeling is like your Illustrator. All right, so mesh modeling is with the polygons, which are resolution dependent, which means like Photoshop, you have to have more like pixels in Photoshop for more detail. You have to have more vertices and faces, to get the fine details. So, but you can sculpt fine details, and that's what ZBrush is a master at doing. However, the drawback is it's harder to manipulate the overall form. So that's why you want to use this in combination with a NURB-based program. And then finally, as I said, this is similar to that raster bitmap image that you would find in Photoshop. All right, now here's the big one that you probably, if you've heard a lot of buzzwords about, and that's the parametric. What is parametric? And I coined the, versus the old way of doing things as linear. So I like to call that linear, and parametric is nonlinear. So they both have advantages and they both have disadvantages. All right, so, but parametric is where this industry is heading. It's where all industries are heading. And the advantages as our processing power gets faster and faster, are greater, then it allows us, it just makes our lives a little easier and easier. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But as a broad introduction, parametric, which is that nonlinear approach, allows us to change any portion of our model at any time. So that's why I call it nonlinear. So you might start with you're building a ring, you might start with a ring rail. In both linear and nonlinear approaches. However, when you run sweeps and you run all different changes throughout your process, at any time you can in the nonlinear approach, you can go back and change your ring rail size, how many stones you have. Client changes become much easier. All right, than if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which oftentimes, if you were to do it traditionally, the linear approach, which when you have a client changing something, you oftentimes with a linear approach, you might have to start all the way back at the beginning. Now, that's not always a bad thing, because it can be faster to start from scratch. So the way I teach is it's always important to keep just build your tool set. Always add to it. Don't subtract from it. So you're never subtracting the old way of doing things. All right. So groundbreaking technology, as I said before, as processing speeds get better and better, we're able to do more and more things parametrically. I'm going to talk soon about Matrix Gold. What Matrix Gold refers to as dynamic, it's interchangeable with parametric. That's the same thing. It is just an example. This is a slide of inside Matrix Gold, and on the right side we have a nice layout of all the commands that we've done, and we can revisit that at any time in our project. So any of those commands are up, and they relate to, it's all about a relationship with other commands. So you change one that gives an output and is input into another command, and then that input into that command changes, and then so on. So it's really nice that you can work, again, non-linearly. So this leads to greater efficiency and speed for our overall project, and especially with changes, like I said before. It is visually flexible, and which is, what I mean by that is, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later too, but it helps with the design process because we get immediate visual feedback. By immediate, I mean it might take a little while, but it's a lot faster than the linear approach, which you have to guess where your project's heading. All right? Linear is a traditional method, and again, it's not a bad thing. What this does is we're actually free from software restrictions, so I'm able to do multiple techniques and use multiple programs, usually with a linear approach, so I have certain freedoms with that. And then even more than that, I have, usually it's more artistic, all right? So a linear approach is more creative freedom, affords you more creative freedom. It's more artistic, less mathematical. It can be more time consuming, but at the same time, it can be a faster way to a solution. A linear way out might be faster than trying to figure out the parametric way out. It does, though, however, offer you very little flexibility when it comes to changing things. Oftentimes, you're left to starting over. CAD artists, though, can get really fast, and so starting over might be 45 minutes from start to finish. But I like to teach, keep your models, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, and parametric as long as possible, and then break it into linear always. At the end, you're always going to break into linear for certain advantages we'll get to soon. All right, new versus old. So this is where, and there's certain CAD artists as well that do not embrace the new like Zoltan does, and they're fine with letting their techniques become the way of the dinosaur, really. Now that a lot of them are friends of mine and everything, but you need to kind of get out of your comfort zone often, and otherwise you're going to kind of get stuck in your lane. So here's just a few things of new versus old, and in this case the old is kind of all negative connotations for this slide. So we need to embrace this or risk falling further and further behind. So a lot of Matrix 9 users will not make the jump to Matrix Gold. And Matrix Gold, and we were one of them actually. They admit, Solar admits, they fumbled the ball. All right, so they admit that, and because of that, a lot of people can just, it's easy to blame the big guy, right? So it's easy to blame Solar. So, but that doesn't mean you're not hurting yourself. And I'll explain that a little bit more later too. Sub D is pretty much, it's where I want every one of my personal projects to get to. This is actually a linear approach in the end. This is what's going to make, it's going to soften your edges. It's going to make your, and I will talk about Sub D, it's just going to make your models look better. I'll talk about it later. Here's just two examples of Sub D. We've got the Clayu, which comes, a third-party program that comes with Matrix Gold. I don't love this as much as the alternative, which also can be done in Matrix Gold, which is Rhino's Sub D. All right, so you've got both. The good news is if you learn one, the other, you're basically, it's a different way of working. It is mesh modeling. I'm going to call it that, even though McNeil, the makers of Rhino, they like to call it a hybrid, but it is mesh modeling. But it's important for me to get to this at the end of each of my projects. All right, and then ZBrush, I'm going to include that in newer technology, even though that's a linear approach. ZBrush is just masterful to handle millions and millions of polygons, which other programs, especially Rhino, will choke on. All right, so it's all about learning how to get in and out of each of those programs. So with ZBrush, we can add those beautiful sculptural details and do more organic-like things. All right, this is an example of one of my lessons that we do in ZBrush. Something like this, you just cannot do the detail in a NURB-based program. All right, I actually just changed this slide because I hate AI. Who doesn't? But we need to embrace it. All right, so keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We're not putting this genie back in the bottle. And the reason why I changed this is I was talking with Bo over at GemVision about this presentation and everything, and they're working on incorporating AI into Matrix Gold as well too. I've just started using it in Photoshop, and I've been using Photoshop forever. Before it came out, I beta tested it. And it's pretty amazing, but it's so hard not to hate. So we have old stale technology, and I'll just quickly glance over that. It's slower and a loss of resources when you don't stay up to date with these newer things, and it really limits your creativity and you'll have technical limitations as well. You just won't be able to do things that others around you are able to do. So I'm going to talk next a little bit about some of my secrets, workflow secrets. So these are some of the biggest takeaways I want my students to know. And my students that are here, if you didn't get this, it's just because I'm always adapting. But there's several workflow methods to choose from throughout the CAD process. However, depending on your goal, some may lead to greater success. So here are just some key suggestions. So organization is just so important in the CAD software. There's so many ways to organize, and we just don't take advantage of it. Model conversion. This is the key to getting in and out of all those programs. It's the key to getting from NURB-based into mesh-based. Also, even in the same program, NURB to Sub D. You must know how to convert between models in order to take advantage of the multiple hybrid approach I'm talking about. And then finally, harnessing the power of UVs. This is not taught in the industry. This is me coming from outside the industry. UVs are so important. I'll explain to you more when we get to that slide. All right, organization is key. So, of course, you want to plan ahead. It's obvious. To avoid challenges and dead ends. I do usually work with like three different files. So work in progress, production, and rendering. So it's important to organize which is which for your client's sake. Layers are extremely important, and I cannot. It took me a long time to realize because I've been a CAD artist for 35 plus years, and been working in programs like Photoshop even for as long as that. And layers has always been a part of my life. And it's hard for me to understand, but students have the largest problem with layers. And that's where I'm starting to learn from them that it's super important to teach it. So it helps with your selection management, hiding redundant parts, and boy, do they add up fast. And then modeling aids, like what I have in this slide here, is just changing your what they call your construction plane, and maybe your gem view, and it's just reorienting it to the gem itself will aid you in modeling around that gem, so you don't have to work in always straight up and down. All right, that helps a lot. And then O-Snaps and Smart Track, I just throw this in there. It's really, really important. It's all about geometrical relationships, and both of these help you to associate one geometry with another. All right, model conversion. This is really big in this whole approach. So between approaches, this is NURBS to sub D. So the advantages of doing this is you remove the blockiness and uniformity that you get with NURBS. You add elegance to it, and it gives you better control and less limitations. So the process that I like to use is called quad remesh. It brings it into sub D. Again, not taught very much out there, even outside of this industry. Quad remesh is only a couple years old, but it's a huge. It's one of the most important tools I have in my entire workflow. Again, me personally, I want to work parametrically 80% of the way, and then I want to get it to NURBS and make it look beautiful. That I can't. If I stay parametric, it looks like Legos. All right? That's the downside, and that's the negative connotation everybody's always had with CAD. But it doesn't have to be that way. Between software, this is NURBS to meshes. This is going to ZBrush, basically. This is going to add precision and organic sculpting. Allows us to repair meshes in ways that we couldn't with a NURB-based program. Now, you might not know this, but everything must be converted to meshes in the end. All right? NURBs are only mathematical expressions. Even what we see physically when we're working on the screen is a mesh conversion. So we cannot really interact with the NURB. Z-Mesher and Decimation Master, Z-Remesher and Decimation Master, these are my two favorite tools. Found in ZBrush. They're worth it for the program alone. They help reorganize your flow of your faces. And Decimation Master, if you've got a heavy model that's an STL and need to condense it, there's none. It's amazing what it does. It can reduce it so that you can bring it back into a program like Matrix Gold that is not a mesh program. All right, so let's talk about UVs. This is my favorite subject. But again, it's not taught in this industry. It's kind of coming from the gaming industry. the entertainment industry. It's about surfacing, but I just found some amazing shortcuts that are very useful for this industry. And this is kind of an example that you see there. So it's all about what are UVs? UVs are another coordinate system. Everybody's heard of X, Y, and Z. Those are world coordinates. UVW is a coordinate system that resides on the surfaces of the model itself. All right. So it's when we can communicate between the two, then we're able to do things differently. So if I stay, sorry, I got ahead of myself. If I stay in just nerd base, there's approaches like flowing on surfaces, which some of you might know, and that's kind of like unrolling a ring, and you work on it with a fabrication-like approach, flat, and then you are able to, so you unroll it into a 2D plane, you work patterns and so forth onto two dimensionals, which are a lot easier for us to comprehend, and then roll them back up, flow them back onto your 3D surface. So there's so many. This is just staying in NURBS alone. You can take advantage of UVs. However, when we go into and adding meshes, that's when it really shines. All right, so we can add ornate detail here, and this is kind of the example I have here. This is a slide. So Rhino 8 just came out. It's fantastic. All right, Matrix Gold I'm waiting for. They're going to update, and I think I just ruined your podium. They're going to update to take advantage of all the new things that Rhino 8 has. However, I'm going to start teaching Rhino 8 right now, so we're kind of use advantages right now that come with Rhino 8, and one of them is their UV editor. All right, so I used to teach it in Blender. Now it's much easier for me to teach in Rhino. You're already going to have Rhino. You don't have to learn another program, even though Blender is free. It is so vast. It's a big ask to add to everything. So this is a slide. In the slide itself, this will kind of give you the idea of what UVs, what's going on with UVs. So in the corner there, that's the ring that that's in X, Y, and Z space. All right. Each one of those surfaces where there's a Celtic pattern on gets unrolled into a two-dimensional space of UVs. All right. Then we go into a program like Photoshop and Illustrator, and we can do really extravagant work two-dimensionally in grayscale that then can become three-dimensional. All right. It doesn't have to be just a ring. It just works with everything. And it just really allows us to focus our detail in a two-dimensional space and then have the computer wrap it up for us. All right, so this is I guess that's enough on UVs. It is my favorite subject, however. I'm just going to quickly go through these last. This is just the process of what's happening here. It's texture mapping. Mesh displacement is actually pushing the grayscale into 3D forms, and then ZBrush uses similar and called alpha mass. All right, let's talk a little bit about Matrix Gold. So, if there's one program you're going to buy, it's Matrix Gold. All right, so it's going to get you 80% of everything you need. You can't use ZBrush is great for just taking your stuff to the next level, but you're gonna just be hating life starting every project out in ZBrush. It's not a jewelry program. So I believe Matrix Gold offers the greatest tool set, all right, and that includes just buying Rhino on its own. And I'll explain a little bit about that. So it offers dynamic flexibility. Now, escaping the matrix is kind of a contradiction, but that's because it is written on Rhino. It allows us to go into sub D. And then it's ever evolving. They're constantly adding, and like I just said, they're writing AI now into it. They're writing. They're about to release They've been beta testing along with Rhino 8, so they're about to release a new version that works with Rhino 8. So dynamic flexibility. Oh man, I don't know when I started, but I'm probably going real slow here. All right, so I'm going to try to speed it up. So we got a efficient modeling approach. A lot of this is going to be kind of what I mentioned before. This just is that parametric modeling, all right? So it allows us to easily update design elements to accommodate needs, like from our client changes. It gives, my designs have gotten better because I get to explore many design renditions on the fly. So I can see what does it look like with this many gems versus this many gems. Whereas the linear approach, I cannot get immediate feedback, so my designs suffer because of that. We also are able to tweak the details for greater accuracy. It's easier and fun to learn. The students love it much more because they get that immediate feedback. The user interface is designed just for jewelers. All right, so Rhino alone on its own, it's not. And to be honest, Rhino is one of the poorest user interfaces there is. But Matrix Gold is one of the best, even though it's using Rhino's engines. And again, that encouraging visual feedback. Again, it's really hard if you don't have vision, if you're working linear, to know where things are heading an hour or two from now. All right, escaping the matrix. This is the key. This is what I want. Anyone that has that negative connotation, it's because the matrix is blocky. It's all this and that. Well, we have the power of Rhino 3D within Matrix. All right, it expands our tool set. We can use Rhino panels themselves to add in our to aid us with productivity. So Rhino sometimes has better panels than what comes straight out of the box with Matrix. So we can add those. Of course, Sub D again. Again, work dynamically and then convert it to Sub D, and you will basically you're going to come up with non-parametric advantages here. There's going to be less repetition. It's going to be a less bulky design, more artistic. And it's going to be free of the algorithms that you're used to working. So their algorithms are why we can work parametrically. However, it can be freeing to escape that, more artistic to escape that. And it can also lead to several workarounds. So sometimes the fastest way out is to break out of that matrix and just, I'm going to use Rhino commands, and it's going to solve my problem in 5 minutes rather than half an hour. All right, ever evolving. So these are real quickly relationships. I've already kind of talked about. So Stoller again fumbled the ball, but they're just getting. They're really building up. A lot of you might not know, but they bought Matrix and they bought Rhino Gold and they made Matrix Gold, and they should have probably waited. They should have probably continued with Matrix 9 for a little bit before they went into the realm of parametric. They went too soon and they weren't ready. But that relationship is growing, and they really mean well. They're open to all our suggestions every time they answer the phone when I call, and what do you want to see changed? Gem Vision and Rhino, like I explained before, it's important. They need to work together, of course. And then Gem Vision and ourselves. So we're a strong educational partner, and we offer student discounts for Matrix Gold. Big discounts, actually. All right, and then Gem Vision Launcher is what you see here. That is an easy maintenance with updates, and dynamic tools are always constantly updated. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about ZBrush. So ZBrush allows you to take it to the next level, and it is a linear type of approach, but it is like working with a digital clay. So it's digital sculpting, gives you the ability to do handcrafted appearance, and just more creative freedom. So again, modeling in digital clay, you're pushing and pulling millions of, it just handles so much data. It's amazing, this program. Other programs can't even load these things. This just allows you to manipulate that data with brushes of all sorts. So like you're carving in the clay itself. Block out large forms first. It forces you to work like we should have in art school, right? Large forms first, sculpt the fine details last. And then magic mask, I'm going to go over this really quickly. I'm not really here to teach, just kind of introduce. But mask is an entirely different way to work. It was really weird when I first started working with ZBrush. Basically, you're painting masks on your surfaces, and then wherever there isn't, you can use powerful deformations in the unmasked area. All right, it's a wonderful way to work. Also added that graphic drawing tablet is a really nice way to draw right onto your surfaces. So very artistic versus the nerve-based approach. This is an example of a lesson I have, that makes kind of a handcrafted appearance. Jason, so perfect imperfections, slight imperfections are always aesthetically pleasing. So you can use ZBrush to basically, you want to add those slight imperfections. They make your work look handcrafted. Softer lifelike edges, that's always a less mechanical thing, more realistic. This will also aid in better renderings as well. Not that you're going to use ZBrush for renderings, you're just going to use it maybe to prepare for a better renderer. And again, engraving with alpha masks is like the process that you see here that allows you to do these masks, like I drew this mask out in Photoshop. All right, and then using that UV, I was able to lay it out on and again, it doesn't have to be a round surface, it could be any surface, any flowing surface at all. All right, so just hand-engraved looks that are not possible with nerves. All right, creative freedom. You're free from common CAD methods. It's more fun. Meredith, you're going to have more fun doing this. It's just more creative. You can fix broken topology with it. Use retopologic approaches to reorganize your meshes, and then decimate to reduce file size. Those are all important things that ZBrush does. And it can also be used, freedom from designer's block. I added this because you can quickly like sculpt clay to get a design out. All right, so you can mold your ideas, and ZBrush can just simply do things that other programs can't. And I want to include even Blender and Maya and all that because sculpting ZBrush is the king. Maya and Blender do more overall, but for just sculpting purposes, you're not going to beat ZBrush. All right, we're almost done. Education, so don't be overwhelmed. You can come to the New Approach CAD Academy because we are these things. We have a cutting-edge classroom I want to talk a little bit about, a strong curriculum, and a haven of information. So we have two monitors side by side, so the students do not have to look up at one monitor to always find their place. It's really easy for them to follow and actually glance at my teaching monitor versus their monitor. We have Solus Pro print stations. Every student takes home prints of each of their projects. And more our students are taking advantage of the sitting and standing. I am now, with teaching, I stand 100% of the time. The students usually by week 2 start to stand more often than sit. And you can, so we can raise them over that. A new approach is just a fun culture and environment. And I do want to mention a little bit, so Jason Marchiafava was here earlier. He's teaches right beside me. Blaine Lewis started the school, and I'll talk a little bit about our relationship in a couple slides from now. And basically, Drew Hadley is there, and of course our students. So when you come, it's an energetic, mind-opening, and very inspirational place. Just ask any of our students. There's, you know, if you can find our students, and they're out there. The first one I saw today was one of them. Just ask. All right. This is our school, by the way. Blaine designed this and built most of it himself. And it's in the shape of a gemstone. All right, a little bit about the curriculum. It's a boot camp. All right, I throw a lot at you. So does Blaine. It's the way we make our curriculums. We just roll. But clear and concise. And as Blaine coined the frame, CAD Smiths, it really is important that we're making jewelers that understand CAD. Or, you know, it's the problem with this industry is the communication between the CAD artist and the jeweler. All right, so we're trying to make that communication much smoother. Real world CAD projects learn from a multitude of tools of how really important, how and when to combine them to get the results you need. So, and then. Just a ton of workflow secrets, and it's all about problem solving. That's what CAD's all about. It's problem solving. All right, finally, I said a little bit about myself. 35 years of CAD experience. I have been with Blaine for 25 years on and off. We started producing videos. We actually met learning CAD. I don't want to call it CAD. It's 3D software called Lightwave. Back in the 90s, he wanted, because he likes to do everything himself. I think this is the one thing he decided not to tackle himself. He went in and took 3 days of let's call it CAD, and then met me, and he said, "You take it from here." And I've been happy ever since. I'm Rhino 3D certified, and I offer additional support. Again, just ask some of our, there's a few in here that beyond the classroom, just email me. I also have helped a lot of our students to buy the hardware and software they need. I found it actually surprising, but I'd say maybe 75% of our students want to know what hardware to buy. So we go through that process. And then software discounts. Talk to me afterwards about that. They're great. All right. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And I really do understand that you have a lot going on at these shows. So thank you for sitting in here for over an hour or whatever. Appreciate it. Yes. Yeah. We have time.
I'm a traditional 3D artist.
Yes.
I'm into jewelry making from 3D and game world mostly.
Yes.
So one of my largest earlier projects, I have a motor license. Probably not heard of motor around here, but it's like a Maya. They have sculpting and stuff in it, and I use that to make a model, and then I took it into ZBrush to add the details, and then 3D print it. One of the things I found is there just isn't any connection between those programs that make it easy. You have to learn new processes just to get the file from A to B to C to D.
Correct.
And when you get to the 3D printer, suddenly you find it's got too many polygons.
Correct. Yeah.
And the slicer crashes. Is that something you think I haven't got something you think the Matrix does better than it?
No. No, the key is learn the recipes that I teach you. Matrix itself does not do it any better. It's the one good thing that you do get with Matrix though is you get that sub D element that is within the program. Sub D is fantastic. It's you're running smoothing algorithms on your meshes as you work. So you're working at them as if they have that continuity of a NURB, but you're afforded all the advantages of like a small simple mesh. So you have direct manipulation and so forth. It's really a nice way to work. Yeah, Matrix Gold, and again, so I guess it's a small enough group. They don't want us advertising this, but I can talk to anybody about this, and this is me talking to us. I'm talking to you all individually, just all at once. So it's now if you take one of our classes, you get Matrix, you get a student version first for $300 for 6 months. After which you can update for half off. So their program is normally $8,000. You get it for $4,300 basically. So, just get it first. Yeah.
I just wanted to clear up a little confusion I have. When you say escape matrix,
Yeah.
are you saying to not to escape matrix not? Are you saying to escape from a NURBS into a sub D?
Mostly, I mean, escaping I guess the number, it is that, but it's also maybe even more than that. It's escaping the parametric process and going into the linear process. So you're going from algorithm more into an artistic approach. You don't want to start with it, but you want to end with it. Mm-hmm. They're all 2 weeks. We have right now, we have a 2 week. So anyone in here, anyone I talk to, I'd really, everyone needs to start at the Matrix Gold beginner class. And it isn't beginner, really. By the end of it, we're into intermediate stuff. And then I've got a 2 week intermediate. And then I'm building, by the end of this year, a 2 week advance. So there's 6 weeks of Matrix there. And right now I have 2 weeks of ZBrush. That'll get you off and running in ZBrush and having fun. I would love to get into another 2 weeks of ZBrush. So right now we have those 4 classes, all 2 weeks. No, I've vetted it all, and they've come to talk to me, and this is where, in fact, I started not wanting to teach Matrix Gold and only wanted to teach Rhino, and that was during a time when they were trying to get their act together, and they kept trying to get our attention, and I taught, at the time I was teaching Rhino, but I knew parametric was what I wanted to teach, where the future was, let's say, and for that reason I was teaching Grasshopper. Grasshopper is just amazing, I love it, but it's graphical algorithms. It is very mathematical. I did teach jewelers that, they had no problem with it, but it is a bigger learning curve, and jewelers don't need bigger learning curves. They've got too much on their plate to begin with. So that's why I revisited Matrix real quickly. Revisited Matrix Gold, and what I came to the table after doing Rhino first was they're teaching Matrix Gold for, everyone that's taught it previously is just to support that program and not really to teach. They're not teaching all the Rhino aspects of it, and because of that, they're not making good jewelers out of that. So when I came to it with the approach, hey, look, I don't have to stop doing anything that I have taught with Rhino. I'm adding only the conveniences of this parametric, and boy, are they ever convenient. I just immediately fall in love with it. I've vetted other programs, and this is what I truly believe is the best approach. Thank you so much. Yeah.